So I started at ACTA on June 1st, 2011. We had 10 people that day, and 4 of us were starting on the exact same day. We've grown substantially since then. It used to be that we would always be thinking about how do we get in the story, and now the story comes to us. That's the best way I can describe it. Kind of one kind of turning point I could think of as far as what ACTA has been doing with trustees, right, was about, I think it was 8 or 9 years ago. Michael Polikoff and I were hosting a trustee seminar in Mount Vernon. Right, we had a group here. We were working with the Aspen Institute, and the topic was just what are best practice in board governance, something pretty generic like that. And we gave the trustees a reader with here are the key documents that we think that you should be looking at, and the whole plan was to have this open discussion. That same day, Louis Freeh came out with the report following his investigation of the Penn State Board of Trustees and the failure of governance there after the Jerry Sandusky scandal. So we're sitting here, we're live, we're doing this seminar, and this story is it's breaking all over the higher ed press, and trustees are checking their phones, and of course, we look at each other and go, yeah, we just need to scrap whatever plans we had and just make this whole day a case study on what happened at Penn State. And what's really cool about that experience was that it was one of the first times I felt that what I was doing was kind of relevant to the real world in time, right? So often when you're working in a policy shop or in the nonprofit world, everything's theoretical, especially in higher education, right? Everything's abstract. But that was one of those times where I felt like I really had a concrete impact on something that was relevant to today. So think about how higher education works in the United States, right? You've got, let's say 2,000 different experiments, right? You have a board of trustees at all these different institutions, different missions. There's no unifying structure to all of them, right? It's not a system. So actually pretty much all colleges and universities are governed by a volunteer board of trustees. They are the only constituency on a college campus whose purpose expressly is to represent the public interest, right? Everyone has their own part on a college campus, but trustees, as the leaders, they're fiduciaries, and so that carries with it a lot of weight, and that's why ACTA does what we do, because all of the, for better or for worse, higher education is going to go the way that its leadership, its trustees go. So to folks that want to serve on a board, or to trustees, or even just to philanthropists who want to help a university, I mean, the question I ask them is this: it's great to be able to give a lot of money to a university and get your name on that library, right? You have an impact on the future of students' lives. But if students aren't going into that library, if that's the way the academic culture is, then what kind of legacy are you actually leaving? So it's really important for those who are have the caretakers of the institution, the trustees, to pay attention not just to the easy things, like the superficial stuff, the buildings, the athletics, but really what's the substance? What are we doing? What does a degree from our institution actually mean? Well, one of the biggest issues with figuring out the value or restoring the value of a college degree is making it accessible to begin with. We have a $1.7 trillion student debt issue in this country, and that didn't happen overnight, right? I mean, you don't see tuition increasing or nearly tripling on an inflation-adjusted basis over the past 30 years without some lack of intervention by the powers that be. And ACTA would say governing boards are a major part of that. They're the ones that sign off on the budget. They're the ones who are, typically you have your rector, their signatures on your diploma. Right? They're warranting that this is a document that's worthwhile to have. So yeah, I totally understand that most trustees don't come from the academy. They don't have higher education backgrounds, but they're from the community. And as a member of the community, as a business leader, as a civic leader, part of your responsibility as a trustee is to bring in that perspective of the real world, right? What should a college graduate know? We're not talking about the syllabus or how a class should be taught, but what should be taught? What should be required? So how colleges spend money, the website, howcollegesspendmoney.com, is one of the things I am most proud of at ACTA. Because what it does is it brings together both the affordability element of what we're trying to advocate for, but also the governance side of things. We're not economists here, we're governance experts. We're not expecting trustees to know everything about higher education finance, but they should care enough to know that having independent information to give you some sort of benchmark against your peers is an important thing to have, right? And so that's what we try to do. What ACTA does for trustees with projects like How Colleges Spend Money is bridge the information gap, that information asymmetry between governing boards and the administrations that run colleges and universities. So there are roughly 23,000 trustees at the 1,500 four-year public and private colleges and universities in the United States that produce a liberal arts degree of some sort. We work with trustees from across the country, all types of missions, faith-based, secular, public, private, and the questions we get, they really run the gamut. But the one thing that these trustees all have in common is that they care very deeply about the soul of the institution. They get it. They get that board meetings aren't supposed to be dog and pony shows, right? They're supposed to be places where people can investigate, where board members should be able to investigate respectfully and to understand really, are we meeting our mission, and are we doing this? Are we doing a service to our constituents, i.e. not just the students, but their families, but also the general public, the employers, the future employers of these graduates, and civic society at large. These people at these institutions, these graduates are the next generation of civic leaders. So as a board member, at least the board members we work with, all of them get this idea that this is really a generation-changing enterprise we're overseeing here. So I have a couple of dreams for ACTA. One of my dreams for ACTA is for our annual Athena Roundtable to be something like the Coachella of higher education, right? And specifically not higher education reform, but higher education itself, because I actually don't like the word reform because I like to think that the ideals that we're advocating for at ACTA are mainstream things, or at least they should be. And so I think so that's one major goal. The other would be, I want to see, higher education. I love to see higher education where the core curriculum is a norm, right? That it's not just something that is this lost ideal, but it's just that is that colleges return to the purpose that they've always had from the beginning. Right, the Chicago principles on freedom of expression, that should be the norm. Education is the great equalizer, right? That is, it's one of the core functions of any institution of higher education. I think that for a while, maybe colleges and universities have strayed a little bit from that, but I have hope that we can get back there. We see these things every day with the stuff that we do here at ACTA, and my hope is that that we can work ourselves out of business someday, right? If we're doing everything right, then there won't be a need for an ACTA 20 or 30 years from now. The one thing about ACTA that really makes it great is the people, right? And not just that, but we have these ideals that we promote. The liberal arts, intellectual diversity. Well, the really neat thing is we live those ideals in the office day to day, right? We hire really, really smart, motivated people with liberal arts backgrounds who can solve problems and can think on their feet. And it shows every single day. Intellectual diversity. I can't think of any other workplace in America where you could have two very diametrically opposed opinions, in the office on any sensitive topic, and actually enjoy hashing it out. Right? There's a certain ethos to what we do. I like to say that the people who do well at ACTA are those who are hustle and patience, right? People who are driven, who are motivated by what we do every day and what we're trying to accomplish. So I'm a huge college sports fan, probably absurdly so. But even I recognize that there's something kind of off about just the way that intercollegiate athletics works in the United States. Like, we're the only country that has pretty much semi-pro athletic leagues attached to our institutions of education. I think, to use a sports analogy for higher education, I think we're at halftime. We're at halftime, and we might be down a few points. We're in the locker room. We're trying to figure out, all right, how do we adjust? What didn't work? What's going to work? We need a new game plan. And I think there's a lot of game left to be played here. And look forward to seeing what's next.